So is your girl a bad bee? Or does she have lumbar lordosis? Or as I address it, an anterior pelvic tilt? Now this image may be fun and amusing, but it is all too accurate. Now, how often do you see someone who has lumbar lordosis and they'll say, "Look at my butt. It's so big." But in reality, no. You have a muscular deviation. Your pelvis is tilted. Your butt is sticking out, making it look bigger than it actually is. Your abs are sticking out. There's this excessive curvature of your lower back. Chances are it's causing a lot of lower back pain. And when there's too much of that back hyperextension, then that spine is taking a lot of pressure. Guess what? Too much of that pressure may lead to a bulging or herniated disc. These are things you really don't want. Now, if you're going into a squat or a deadlift, oh, you really don't want an anterior pelvic tilt. So, why is the anterior pelvic tilt occurring? Most commonly, it's due to a muscular imbalance. This could be caused by exercising in an imbalanced way, where certain body parts are compensating for one another, or it could be from competing in a sport that taxes the body unevenly, which causes these muscular imbalances. Now, this also occurs to those who have a sedentary lifestyle or those who spend long periods of time sitting. Now, what we know is that sitting will actually shorten your hip flexors and will cause them to become very tight. Not only that, but sitting will also weaken your glutes. Now, when someone has an anterior pelvic tilt, we can assume that they have tight hip flexors, they have a tight lower back, and they have weak glutes and weak abs. So what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you some stretches that will stretch out those hip flexors as well as the lower back. Not only that, but I'm going to show you some exercises that I like that will strengthen the glutes and the abs. The first stretch I have to address the lower back tightness is the cat-cow. And from here I'm starting out at a slight hyperextended position in tabletop, which is a yoga term for you guys. And from there, I am going into the cow position, tucking in my tailbone and purposely rounding my back, going in and out. From there, I can transition into a child's pose. When doing this, same principle applies, when doing the cat-cow. I am tucking in my tailbone and rounding my back. Next up is by far my favorite way to stretch out the hip flexors. Now, what I'm doing is I'm using a mobility stick, and I'm using it as leverage to access greater ranges of motion that I'm used to compared to just body weight or without assistance of the stick. What I'm doing here is I am driving the stick into the ground, producing all this force, producing this isometric tension, which will allow me to get into an even greater anterior stretch of the hips. If I actually want to increase the intensity of the stretch or increase the range of motion, I can move my hands up a few inches, as you just saw. I can continue to lunge. Not only that, but throwing in some rotations from left to right. Now, you don't necessarily need a mobility stick like the one I have here. Let me tell you, I recommend it. They're pretty awesome. But you can pretty much get away with any PVC pipe or dowel stick that your gym may have. Next, I'm going to show you two exercises that will strengthen your glutes, or at least increase the neurological connection you have to them and allowing yourself to activate them more efficiently. What I'm doing here is the frog bridge, where at the top of the movement I am really focusing on the max contraction of the glutes. And here is a reverse lunge toe touch. This is actually a favorite of mine when someone has trouble activating their glutes properly. Now, to get proper activation of the glutes, you're going to need to take a long enough stride with that back leg. Not only that, but you're going to have to drive that front heel into the ground, as it is pretty much where all your weight is going to be distributed. That back leg is just there for stability. Now, what I would do with both of these exercises is I would treat them more as the part A of a pre-exhaustion superset. Let's say I had a frog bridge, I could superset that with a squat. Lastly, I'm going to show you an exercise that will strengthen your abs. But before I get into that, I'm going to show you an exercise that you should not do if you have an anterior pelvic tilt, and that is the flat leg raise, what I'm showing you right here. Because if an anterior pelvic tilt is present, chances are your hip flexors are going to take over the movement. Now, just to show you guys, let's say I did have an anterior pelvic tilt. This is what a leg raise would look like. So instead of doing a leg raise, what I would recommend is doing a ball crunch. Now, here is the most important thing about doing this exercise. You need to shut off activation of your hip flexors. Only way to do that is to apply the law of reciprocal inhibition. And what that means is that in order to shut off one body part, you need to activate the other. So to deactivate the hip flexors, we need to activate the glutes. And as you can see here, I am actually flexing my glutes and maintaining that flexion while doing crunches, making sure I get absolutely no hip activation. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for checking out this video, and if you have an anterior pelvic tilt, be sure to throw in these exercises into your routine. As for myself, this is Alex from Body Catalyst Training.